share what we were. So when I did exams, I didn't share what we were. All right. So I don't see anybody on yet. Okay. So start off with just you guys just repeat. Yechat wasab. Yechat ayah achsayechsati. So going through and using this template, you can choose any one of those three, whichever one you want. It's like an option. So like, and then basically, if you said yechat wasab, you wouldn't have to say that again when you get to the next one. So for example, I could say lens. And that's it. I don't have to repeat the verb. The verb, that part becomes optional. And it's good to think of these things to achieve a sense of fluency, so that you're just sort of choosing the way you want this to be structured. Because I could also say because that one, since I didn't use the verb the first time, I would use it the second time. All right, so the next line down. So that's one where you'd say either raven, or eagle, or wolf, or crow. I guess that translates to crow. And then the next line down, you would say your clan, and then so let's just all say shkun adich, shkun adich, shkun. So that's the first one. Let's see, who do we have on the phone?
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? We don't have anybody online. Yesterday they were all getting kicked off. So. All right, so let's do this. So with these first three, so you choose one from the top, and then you get the second line, and then the third line. So let's just say the whole thing all the way through for yourself. And then we'll move on to the house, and we'll move on to the child and grandchild. I'll explain these things as we go along. So for example, so the other thing, I guess we should put in parentheses that whole verb part as well. Because if you said yesh nachatzati, you can actually say just shukachati after, and people are going to know that you're just talking about your clan. So you don't have to, we're trying to repetition of the introduction. Because a lot of people, when they learn this, they go ayachat, ayachat, and that just becomes the stamp at the end of every single time. We're trying to move away from that. And also just to be able to move through this in a variety of different ways. And when you do introduce yourself, it could be you move into this long sort of history of your lineage because you're tying yourself to the person that we might be talking about, say at a funeral or something like that. Or if you go to visit someplace and you say, oh, well, maybe they don't know my grandfather is from here. So you would stand up, and the goal of your introduction there is to talk about kinship and how you relate to people from a place. So let's just go with those first sections. First one, you could pick one, the second one, and then the third one. So.
Shuatin Aya Said Kachenak Karenza Yekhat Duvasak. Nach Hatsati. Yangedi Hatsati.
Nupiak, Enach, Sumek, Echat, Duasak, Gishpulwadanach, Hak nach Hatsiti, Gishpulwadach, Hatsiti.
Did you do the plate kachina?
Oh, no. It's a plate Hak, Enach, David.
And at the beginning, he said Inupiak Chinach. So it'd probably be a good idea to say Yupik Chinach. Because if you introduce yourself and there are Tlingit speakers, they might say, that name wasn't Tlingit. So it's got a couple of things. So in the first one, so let's see the line down how it says Pleit Chinach. So for the first one, you'd say Yupik Chinach.
Oh.
Because it's just saying, this is my name. And it helps people to know, you should be putting that identity forward.
Would I say anything after I say my name? So you'd say Yupik Chainach Dutmakalga, and then would you say anything after that?
You could say Yechet Tusa, or you could say Aya Achsai, or Achsai Yichseti. Because otherwise you'd just be saying in Yupik, and then you'd say this name, and then go to that. So then you just need to finish it and say this is my name. If we were all doing a round of introductions and you said that, then we would know. But if you just stood up to speak to people and you just started with that, a lot of people probably figure it out, but it would just be like saying, if I stood up in front of a group of people and I said, in English, blanks, and then I just sort of kept going, right? My name is, so I would need to tie it in with that.
Okay. Yupik Chainach Dutmakalga Aya Achsai Late Ka Chainach Alicia Yehatu Sak Shun Adi Chatzati.
Yeah, so, and then Yech Nach Chatzati.
Oh, Yeh Nach Chati.
Okay.
Naweya Aya Achzai Leitka Chenach Austin Yechedusa Chak Chatziti Kavantan Chatziti.
Aya Achzai Lekak Enach Mil Yechedusa Yeh Nach Chatziti.
Akwesh Deit Each Said Let Kitka Enoch Nathan Yechat Duasak Chak Nach Chat Sati.
Kayachajitan. There's a little piece of paper right
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you wrote it down.
I did.
K, high toned A, Y, K, A, Y, A, G with an underline, I, J, E, I, T, T, A, N. Kayachajitan.
Kaye Gitan.
K. We'll take a quick pause in the round of introductions. Achunia Yaweta, Andrea Yeduasa. Spanish Yuchatan Yiko Atleti Wuchsati. Dutuasagu. Ashtu Shitin Panachawaya. Kashuk Takayi Tunachaya. Kashuk Takayi. Qaybutunach Ayabutusatin Hachukias. Okehas Wutiyanta. Kwan Lin, Ka Zantik Ihini, Ka Fairbanks, Kaya Yesiati. Ka Ya Kakis Tinach Aya, Haya Kawu Aya, Tanteich, Kitchan Kaya Titsu. Good Zia, actually, Wushtina Yeshit video. And Andrea, she teaches, coordinates the language program, what do we call them?
French and ASL.
French ASL. Couldn't come up with, can't remember what we were calling them. Wasn't world languages? Or...
They were not unproblematic, sure.
Right. Jakut Yuchatani, other languages. And then she just wanted to come and check out what we're doing here. Interested in the technologies that we're using to teach. We have students through the internet here, the Electric Brain, and then the Electric Brain's web. Going from left to right, we have Whitehorse, Juneau, and Fairbanks. Telephone, we have Ketchikan. Sheesh, anything you want to say?
No, sorry. Just taking notes.
On here, we'll do those first top three sections, the introduction.
Okay. I'm kind of lost. I'll try though.
Anything I can do to help before you start?
I think I got the first one, Glade, Hena, Victoria, the T.
So
And
from
then
looking,
my plan, I don't know how to say that one.
oh, okay. So do you have this introduction handout?
No, I printed out not that. I have I went to Ticket Info and I don't have that. I have like the names of the groups and stuff.
Oh, I see. Well, let me. I'll send it to you real quick, and then I'll repeat it.
Okay.
Let me send it first. Okay, so it's on its way to you. So just repeat after me. Tanteich aya achsai.
Tanteich aya achsai.
Leikach enach Victoria Gate Chatuasa.
Victoria Glade Ka Ena Leduasa.
And then I forget when it was Raven, right? It's a Ravenside clan.
Good Hada Simshan Raven.
Okay, so Yesh nach Hatzati.
Ye na Hatsati.
And then say the clan for me, just the clan's name.
Good Hada.
So you'll say Genhad Hatzati.
Good Hada Hatsati.
Very good. Okay, now online, we'll go left to right. I don't know if you guys see the same order I do. I see Yesh Tuchta.
Yesh Tuchta aya achsai. Tleka Grina Colleen Yechatu Sauk. Yesh Ka Salish nach Hatsati.
And then the clan.
Kohitan.
Okay. The cave is Chish. Hatzam.
Singit Genach Kaspank Yechat Duasak Blake Genach Andrew Williams Yuchat Duasak Kagwantan Nach Hatsati Chak Nach Hatsati.
I don't want to interrupt you, but we can barely hear anything.
There's a mute button icon.
It's like the quietest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, just put in your. Maybe there's like a microphone that's down low or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Because sheesh. When we get to you, we'll just listen really hard. Okay, shkuyesh.
Okay. Shkuyesh you chadua sau. Blake inach Tim Hall you chadua sau. Yech nach chatsiti. Kukatan ach chatsiti.
Okay, but sheesh. Okay,
I have a
Yes.
question. In the Simshan culture, there is no man or eagle side. It's just the four. So it wouldn't be. I mean, you could say in Tlingit culture, you could say I would be considered eagle. So I was wondering how you could say that.
Yeah, and so we're just sort of grabbing one, but so we've had this discussion in terms of intermarriage as well. Like I had a friend and he's a different tribe, but in his tribe he's wolf, and then he's getting engaged, he got engaged, but he was kind of concerned. He says, well, my girlfriend, she's an eagle. And I said, yeah, but that's not Tlingit. So I was like, you can come in with anything, right? And so I think what you would probably do in your introductions is you would actually skip the Nach Chatzati part and just say your clan.
Okay.
And then, clan plus the Chatzati. And that would be fine. And then you could say, if you wanted to continue speaking Tlingit, Suits Khan Ayachat. You could say that right after and say, I'm Simshan. That way you're just letting people. And so we're doing this really for a template so you guys can see the Tlingit way to sort of think of this identity. And we're going to run into things in this next section as well. So a lot of the inland clans don't clan house. So next part, but you guys could build clan houses if you wanted to. What's interesting when you get to Tlingit names is, like, let's say you were born in Juneau, and your clan was Wushkitan, and your whole life you introduced yourself as being from Juneau, this is my clan. But if you later found out in life that your name actually comes from a clan house in Huna, that's where you would say you were from now, even if you had never even been there your entire life. Because in Tlingit, you're from wherever your name comes from. And so those are kind of interesting concepts. And that's not like a really hardcore rule. So like, if you're affiliated your whole life with some certain clan house, then you can stick with that one. In that section of the beginning Tlingit workbook, next week we'll go through all the clan names we just learned. But there are ones that I could find doing the research with some of my colleagues. And then all of the clan houses are in there as well. Now, if we missed, we try to put it in there. It's a living document, and because it's also trying to track clans. When you look at the whole story of Tlingit clans, it's really interesting, dynamic, and a little bit hard to sort of pin down. Certain people don't like to say that their clan is from certain areas, although the stories all indicate these massive migrations, and these migrations giving birth to certain clans. In some cases, one clan becomes two separate clans, or some clan is born out of some clan. In certain clans, they're just really upfront about that history. There's a group in the interior called Ishkitan, which is a contraction of Ishkahit-tan. Ishkahit is located in Klakwan, and they tell the story about how they migrated from Ishkahit and took that name with them. It's a Panach clan house. And so you can just sort of track these things. And so it's really interesting learning Tlingit introductions because your kinship and your introduction is teaching you how to track your family and your lineage and your clan history and sort of in the now. Then you learn the clan names and the houses, and now you're learning this massive history going back 20,000 years, 15,000 years. So there's initially a migration probably up the Naas River, and then the people settled there. Saxman, they have another group that comes in and intermarries with them and starts shifting the language. At some point, they start spreading to Prince of Wales, Katla. There's a huge flood, they go back inland. When the flood subsides, they come back. Well, some people lived on mountaintops for a long time. They tied their boat. And what's crazy is they made these ropes out of seaweeds and tree bark and stuff like that. And there's certain places where those ropes are still there on the mountaintops where they tied their boats during the flood. And I've heard that they're just perfectly preserved, but if you touch them, they just turn to dust. It's like 10,000 years old. So then when the flood subsides, people come back to the coast, this time through the Stikine, and that's when people go under the glacier, the Dukhalidi and Deshikan. It's their migration story. There seems to be an awful lot born out of two particular groups, and then a third group is coming in. Banach Adi seems to be a really old Raven group, perhaps the first Raven group. Nanya Ayi, perhaps the first Eagle Side group. And then it's just this big killer whale migration that becomes Dukhalidi, Sagui. And from there, we just start splitting. Another group comes called Tehuidi, and they have this huge migration from Saxman around to Angoon and all the way up to Yakutat, splitting off into several different Eagle clans, like Chukuni, Wushkitala, Kabwan. So it's really interesting to study this history and to get to know it. It's a delicate subject. As we talk about clan history, we break down how these clan names work, and it becomes really important. Because as fewer and fewer people speak Tlingit, fewer and fewer people know how to say the clan names properly. And so it's important because in Sitka there's a group, Khukitan. They are an Eagle Side clan, the Box House people. And in the inland there's a group called Khukitan. That's a Raven Side group. The pit house people. Kook are indiscernible to non-Tlingit people. So they'll inevitably say kook and kook. Or and if you go inland now, it'll say Kurgaton. And that just completely, it introduces this sound that's historically not a Tlingit, the O, kook. And then it also drops the no. There's no such thing as kook. People get into weird territory saying, well, this is what your clan really is. But at the same time, we've got to protect the language and put these different things in. Because then it gets kind of lost. It gets a little bit sketchy. So, but these are the things we'll talk about looking at clans and identity. To finish this sheet, the next line down, we'll just go with Shkunhit. That's our clan house for this exercise. We could fill the blank with one clan house. We're not going to do the round the circle ones. We're going to get through this sheet and we're going to move back to the Raven story for now. And then I'm going to tell you about a kinship exercise that you'll have a chance to look over this sheet. The exercise is very fun and quite a few of us, so it's going to be very thought-provoking. Okay, slide down. We'll say Shkunhit. Yedu wasak. Hanakahiti. Shkunhit yedu wasak hanakahiti.
Shkun hit yedu sak ha.
Shkun hit yedu wasab ha nakahiti.
Shkun hit yedu sak ha nakahiti.
So we've got yedu wasab, which is the zero pronoun, so saying him or her or it is called, and then we're specifying afterwards. And it's a really dynamic thing to use in Tlingit, because you could say, if you're specifying, you're talking in Tlingit, you're trying to specify something. You might say, it was the big bird is called and it's not Big Bird like in Sesame Street. We call it a crane. No,
A
a heron.
Yeah.
Thank you. Get them mixed up in English. You know, when I was in Hawaii, they've got a word for octopus and a word for squid. In English, they say squid for both. It blew my mind. I had to think about it for like 5 minutes. Wait a minute. I just kept asking. I was like, but you've got a word in Hawaiian for each one. I said, yes. I said, and you know that that's an octopus and that's a squid? Yes. And you call them both squid? Yes. It's like, okay. That's awesome. So another way to say it, Shkun hit ayahana kahiti.
Shkun hit ayahana kahiti.
Shkun hit ayahana kahiti.
Shkun hit ayahana kahiti.
The next 2 lines, you're acknowledging other portions of your lineage. So if you're acknowledging your father's people, that's the first thing. And so you're just, whatever your father is, then you say that clan or that lineage or that ethnicity followed by yeti. And a matrilineal culture, but you do always, you honor your father, and those are the people you often show the most respect to publicly. Those are the ones you dance for often when they're calling you out. So there's a really special relationship there. Well, let's just pick, I guess we could say Kaya Kajaitan. We'll just made up our class clans for now. Kaya Kajaitan.
Kaya Kajaitan.
Kaya Kajaitan.
Kaya Kajaitan.
Kaya Kajaitan Yeti Ayachat.
Kaya Kajaitan Yeti Ayachat.
So this is where you'd say, and you could say, Filipino Yeti Ayachat, Yupik Yeti Ayachat, Sami Yeti Ayachat, Jevka Yeti Ayachat, Swedish Yeti, you put anything in there. And you're just acknowledging what your father is. And it's a way to honor that side, right, publicly. The grandchild of it, in this case, it could be, it's not your own clan. So even though your mother's mother's mother and mother is the same clan as you don't need to acknowledge it. Because we all know that. But this could be your mother's father's clan, your father's clan. And so it's really interesting to think of lineage, because like your father's the same thing. So you don't have to acknowledge yourself as a Tejchat. But this would specifically apply to anything different we haven't mentioned that's in your direct lineage up above. So we'll say, there'll be Qanach Adi. Why not? Everybody say Qanach Adi.
Qanach Adi.
Qanach Adi.
Qanach Adi.
Qanach Adi Tejchat.
Qanach Adi Tejchat.
Like the mysterious pause, that was interesting. So the Tejchat, which is saying, I'm a grandchild of this clan. And same thing, if your mother's father was Dutch, say Dutch Tejchan Ayachat. And this is just acknowledging that lineage, however you want to sort of look at it. In tradition, it was clan-based, and you would keep close track of this stuff, all the way up to 3 or 4 generations up. So the next line down is if you get to specifically your mother's father's clan. Right? So let's say our mother is Shkun Adi. Her mother is Shkun Adi. But her father is wush itan. Then we would say one of two things. Wush itan aya achta kanuchu. Right. And now, wush itan aya achta kanuchu. Now, ka is around the outside of something. Nu is a shell. My outer shell, right? My mother's, father's people. It could be a clan, it could be a nation, it could be anything like that.
See that one more time?
Mothers, fathers. It's specific to this term. And it's not used very much at all, to be honest. And it's not that it's not used, it's just that people are forgetting it. It's getting into some pretty specific lineage and some older sort of Tlingit terms. And your goal should be to have lots of fun with the language, enjoy some of the modern slangy aspects of it, but then when you talk, have people say, oh yeah, that sounds like old Tlingit. That's what you want. That's good Tlingit. And then another way would be Achtakanu Uchsati. Achtakanu Uchsati. So then we talk about this third person object pronoun, so you could say UAS Yedu Wasal Skuni. My school is called UAS. Right? And so you can name all kinds of things and specify what they are. That was true. I had a dog. I named him Dog. It was so fun. You say my dog's name was Dog. But as far as the specifics for this, you would have the Tlingit name or the English name if you wanted to. That's what you need. Yedu Wasak, kinship term. Right? So, for example, I could say, and this is how I could tell you all about my family. That's my father's name. That's my grandparents' name. And what's neat is you learn how to string these things together. You could say, Gushtahin Yedu Wasak Achlit Achla Ish. So what I did there is I said, this was his name, my grandparent, my mother's father. So it's just a string of it together. But, you know, it's specifying, one, we're stating the name, two, we're saying whose name it is, three, we're saying how we're related to that person. The other thing is there's a verb form that we're using here. It's a repetitive verb. This is what he or she is called. The next line down from that is what we call a decessive verb, which means it doesn't happen anymore. So you use this one to talk about people, and as soon as you use this verb form to talk about somebody's name, everybody knows that that person has passed away. So in this case, I would say, my father this was his name. So it's a way to really communicate a lot of information with just this sort of one page of phrases. You could talk a lot about yourself, you could talk a lot about people, you could talk a lot about relatives, and it's all tied into this kinship thing, which we'll be looking at next week. Okay, so to move down and keep going, Tlingit is divided into kwans. A kwan functions sort of like a state. So this is, where are we at now? Kwan. We go down to the south part of Juneau, where we're at there. Alku. If we go up to Haines, anybody know where then? Yeah. Hoot. If we go up to Klekwan. Jishka. If we go over to Hunakawu, right? That's the one that doesn't use Kwan. The reason they don't use Kwan is because they got booted out of Glacier Bay by the Techtlushke Park Service and other folks. And so they said, that's where we live. And since we can't go home, we'll call ourselves the people of Kunhaya. So Kwan means people of a place. So you think of wherever your name comes from or wherever your clan house, this is where your clan identity is rooted, regardless of where you were born. This is where you're from. So for example, let's just, for a magical class example, we are all from Ak Kwan. We're very careful with that. Kwan, that's the Wushkitan and Yaktehitan people. So not to insult them, but just to use it as an example. You could say, Ak Kwan Dach Ayachat. Or say, Ak Kwan Dach Ayachat.
Ook gewoon dag eigen.
Ook gewoon dag eigen.
Ook gewoon dag eigen.
So if you look at there's a map of the Tlingit places in the back of the section that has the
to Shashushke.
Hey, where did we lose you guys? Probably can't see us anymore. Sean, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Uh,
Click.
And then the last one, you Juno Yeh. So keep that Kwan.
I think you just untied something.
All right, so on line 31. And same thing, I'll say it, you repeat. This is just a chance to just encounter some longer stretches of Tlingit. You're going to see repeating things. So we saw that verb, akake. So we know that has to do with untying something. And we haven't unpacked verbs a whole lot here. We're not going to worry about it right now. All right. All right, we keep getting kicked off. I have no idea what's going on. Taking story up though, so at least you guys have something to look at. Yeah, we're having some connection issues. Nope, you guys see the Raven screen? Hopefully this is just a bad company. Whatever hechwa is going on in the internet, it repairs itself magically. We're just going to assume that that's what's going to happen. Okay, here we go. We'll go around the room, onto the phone, onto our online Kohanim. Starting with line 31. Yesh Ekuptus Yecha is the name of the story. Raven loses. Adnat Akapeg.
Anak akakeg soup.
Un Ayendu.
Un ayen dufne saya.
Ya Yate.
Ya Yesh.
G did not wait.
Could you say that again?
G did not wait. G did not wait.
G de look wait.
So you're gonna see a lot of times when I'm putting things in Tlingit, I use no capital letters because sometimes you'll just have an L by itself and you'll think that it's an I. But that L by itself usually appears before a verb, and it means, or sometimes it appears before a verb, it means to not, whatever that verb is. So we've talked about the different ways to say not in Tlingit. Everybody just repeat after me. Play.
Play.
Catch.
Catch.
Hesh.
Hash.
Tish. Those are all ways to say not. And it just sort of comes down to choose your own adventure. Choose your own way to say not. Some people go back and forth between kesh and hesh. I would say whoever your favorite speaker Tlingit is, listen to what they do. Or if there's people from your region, you know, they do a certain thing more. Tish, I've heard Cyril George, Bessie Cooley, Ida Kalmegan. And it's funny because sometimes you'll be sitting with fluent speakers and Ida was talking to me and she said Tish. And I said, what is Tish? And I was thinking about it. And then right at that moment when I'm thinking about what that particular word means, she says, do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yes, I don't know what Tish is. And then she's like, Tish is, oh, it means not. Anyway. But usually when it contracts to that L, a lot of times it means sort of without as well. So, and this one, G did not wait. They didn't feel it there. Nuke is the verb to feel something. Nuke, I feel it inside. Right? Especially like somebody's really sad. I also feel that sadness. Okay. This turn. Aya ada YouTube tank.
Aga aya adu YouTube talk.
We ka we asteri.
We ka we say the last part.
Asteri.
Asteri.
On the tanteich. Achowe.
Achowe.
And we'll try our online Kwani. Yeah,
Yeah.
the hardest line all day.
Yay.
Oots. G a yao ziku will ka away.
Ji ayal ziku ka awe.
So they're saying this guy who can really feel things, and that's actually really funny in Tlingit. And Nora translates it as the bite expert, which is also really funny. Okay. Du iqa yan yak u kuch you ah.
One more time, please.
Du iqa yan kuch. You ah. That's something you also don't hear very much, and it means they say. So like as you're telling a story, you're like, so they say, right? And it's used quite a bit in these types of stories, especially folks who speak that old style of Tlingit. You ah, or just like something that's very commonly known in Tlingit culture. Oh wait, so
Away.
da kuch away.
Da. How do you say the?
Kuch.
Oh, da. The
Oh.
not underlined K. How?
Oh, da.
Oh.
Just like a regular K.
Da. Hu.
Away.
Away.
So, kuch is a motion verb to go by boat or car. Dak means to go out to sea. Dak means to go up to the inland. To a debu good.
Su a demo good.
Ha de chatle.
Tate chakle.
Ka de nach. Dad ye adan.
Denach. Ya adane.
Ye adane.
Edane. Edane.
On the phone, Tante. Kach ayanach ku away.
Ya, kana, ya, away.
And then online. At yawza adadach ye adane ye.
Yautzi a atatach ye ataneyi.
Away hodge.
Away Koch.
G ayawdanuk.
Ji ayal dinuk.
G ayawdanuk away ayawde.
G-A-R Danuk away wait. De.
Ajikawahud.
Hajikawa.
Pulling it up by his hands. Alqa away dishunach wujay.
Aka. Away. Dunach. Wulche.
You guys ever see that ridiculous movie where the guy is ordering food at a drive-thru and she keeps saying, and then, away. That's how you say it. Oh, where were we?
Again.
Okay. You up, wait, echa.
You up with techa.
I want to move it down a little.
Oh, thank you. Sheesh. King dysyak.
Came to. Yeah.
So when you see if there's a verb, and we'll start to recognize what verbs look like. One of the things we'll do when we'll come back to this story and similar stories, and we'll play spot the verb. Where's the verb? Where's the verb? K is part of the verb, and that nadusyek is how it would be. But when you get K plus na and D, you get cane. Yeah. So they just, the open-ended things tend to run right into the consonants. All right, next. Okay. Ashtin weyak tayik a hate the key. Okay.
Oh, is it me?
Is it? Did you go?
Okay.
Ashtin weyak
Astin weyak.
tayik a hate the key.
Taye i he ki
Tanhech kayat. Aman kwani yakam atayi awatsech weyak.
Yakagse awe ataye awasech weyak.
Kaudutzachat.
Kaudutzachat.
Adusanich sasati cha adeyechat naiu.
Adusanich sasati adeyechat naiu.
That in the context is hilarious, so that's where we'll stop. And it's hilarious because, you know, it's just a ridiculous, like you're telling this Raven story, and he's saying, whoever is Raven's paternal uncle, please forgive me, which is just, it's just preposterous. And then people just laugh because it's a very cheeky thing to do in the moment. All right, so your goal, this is what we're gonna do next week. If I turn the screen off, you guys probably won't see anything. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to assume that the internet is going to repair itself. Shakwazinech. There we go. It's going to repair itself. Shakwazinech. And looking at these kinship charts, we're all going to pick one. So like I'll say, I want to be the yeet. I'll be the son. And then you say, okay, I'll be the mother. And you say, okay, I'll be the father. Okay, I'll be the. You're going to pick one of those kinship terms. You're going to sort of map it out. And then when we all pick one, we'll go around the room and say how we're related to each other. It's mind-blowing. It was so fun. I learned that trick in Yang. Cheese to cut you on. We're signing the language bill tomorrow. Party hard, party.
Yeah.
Good job, everybody.
Right on. Okay.
And we'll see you on Monday. Get your words to me today or tomorrow somehow through email or just drop them in my box. Oh, one more thing.
So Friday evening, there is a film director that's coming. She's from Mexico. She's Chatina. So that's her language. Her interest in directing is on indigenous people. This film is about migration, so she's going to screen her film and then she'll have a Q&A afterwards. So I brought, if you guys want to go. I know some of the other classes are giving, like the comm classes and the English classes are giving extra credit opportunities. So you might talk to your other friends. But she can be really great. And if anybody's interested in film, directing, or making films, generally, we're going to have a little more, a small kind of gathering in the Native World Student Center on Friday from noon to 2 if you want to stop by. And I'll bring you some simple food. Went through Sunday.
One.
We were reading the part about Raven time on time. Just kept thinking in my head.